They say blood is thicker than water. But what happens when your own family makes you question your sanity? I'm 68 years old, and I've never felt more alone in my life. Last Tuesday, I caught my 16-year-old grandson red-handed, stealing money from my wallet in my own bedroom. When I confronted my daughter-in-law about it, she looked me straight in the eye and said, "Margaret, I think you're getting confused. Maybe it's time we talked about your memory." My own son nodded in agreement. But I'm not crazy. I'm not confused. And I'm definitely not going down without a fight. What started as a simple theft has turned into a war for my dignity, my sanity, and my place in this family. They think they can gaslight me into submission, paint me as a senile old woman who's lost her grip on reality. They have no idea what I'm capable of when pushed into a corner. This isn't just about stolen money anymore. This is about a family being torn apart by lies, manipulation, and secrets that run deeper than anyone could imagine. And before this is over, everyone will know exactly who the real villain is in this story. My name is Margaret, and I've been a widow for 8 years now. After my husband Robert passed from cancer, I thought my world had ended. We'd been married for 42 years, and suddenly I was alone in our 4-bedroom house, surrounded by memories and an overwhelming silence that seemed to echo through every room. But then my son David and his wife Jessica moved back to town with my grandson Tyler. At the time, Tyler was just 8 years old, a shy, sweet boy with Robert's eyes and my stubborn streak. David said they wanted to be closer to family, especially after losing his father. I was overjoyed. Finally, I had a purpose again. I became Tyler's after-school babysitter, his homework helper, his confidant. While David worked long hours at his accounting firm and Jessica pursued her real estate career, I was the one who picked Tyler up from school, made him snacks, listened to his problems. We had movie nights every Friday, just the two of us, sharing popcorn and laughing at old comedies. He called me Grandma Maggie, and I called him my little professor because he was always asking the most thoughtful questions. Jessica and I had what I thought was a good relationship. She was polite, always thanked me for watching Tyler, brought me flowers on Mother's Day. Sure, she could be a bit controlling. She had very specific ideas about Tyler's diet, his bedtime, his activities, but I respected that she was his mother. I bit my tongue when she criticized my cooking or rearranged my kitchen after family dinners. I told myself it was just her way of showing she cared. David seemed happy. He'd found success in his career, had a beautiful wife, a smart son. Sometimes I caught him looking tired, stressed, but when I asked, he'd just smile and say, "Mom, everything's fine. You worry too much." I suppose I did worry. It's what mothers do, even when their children are grown men with families of their own. Our family dinners became a weekly tradition. Every Sunday, they'd come over and I'd cook David's favorite pot roast with all the fixings. Tyler would help me set the table, chattering about school, his friends, his latest obsession, whether it was dinosaurs, space, or video games. Those were the happiest moments of my week. I thought I was blessed. I thought we were a close, loving family. I thought Tyler and I had an unbreakable bond. I was so naive. But everything started to change when Tyler turned 14. It was subtle at first. The kind of changes you expect when a sweet little boy becomes a moody teenager. He stopped wanting to help in the kitchen, spent more time on his phone, gave shorter answers to my questions. I told myself it was normal. All teenagers go through phases. Jessica, however, seemed to take Tyler's adolescence as a personal mission. She became hyper-vigilant about his activities, his friends, his grades. She installed tracking apps on his phone, demanded to know where he was every minute of the day. When I gently suggested she might be a bit too strict, she snapped at me. "Margaret, you raised your child in a different time. The world is dangerous now. You don't understand the pressures kids face today." David always backed her up. "Mom, Jessica knows what she's doing. She's just being protective." I started noticing how Tyler would tense up whenever his mother entered the room, how he'd quickly hide his phone or close his laptop, how he'd look at me with these sad, tired eyes that reminded me so much of my late husband when he was struggling with something he couldn't share. The first real red flag came during Tyler's 15th birthday party. Jessica had planned this elaborate celebration. Expensive decorations, catered food, a guest list that seemed more about impressing other parents than celebrating Tyler. I watched my grandson sit in the corner, barely touching his cake, while Jessica flitted around taking photos for social media. When I sat next to him and asked if he was okay, he whispered, "I just wanted a small party, Grandma Maggie. Maybe just family." But Mom said that would be embarrassing. That's when I realized Jessica wasn't just protective, she was controlling, and Tyler was suffocating under the weight of her expectations. I started paying closer attention to their family dynamics. Jessica would criticize Tyler's appearance, his posture, his choice of friends. She'd make comments like, "Tyler, you're getting chubby. Maybe skip dessert tonight." Or, "Your hair looks messy. What will people think?" David would just sit there, scrolling through his phone, pretending not to hear. Tyler began spending more time at my house, showing up unannounced after school, asking if he could do homework at my kitchen table instead of going home. I welcomed him with open arms, but I could see the stress etched on his young face. He'd lost weight, had dark circles under his eyes, jumped at sudden noises. When I tried to talk to David about my concerns, he brushed me off. "Mom, you're overthinking things. Jessica's just trying to prepare Tyler for the real world. She wants him to succeed. But success at what cost?" I watched my confident, curious grandson transform into an anxious, withdrawn teenager who seemed to be walking on eggshells in his own home. The stealing started small, and I almost missed it entirely. A $20 bill missing from my purse here. Some loose change gone from my kitchen counter there. At first I blamed my own forgetfulness. Maybe I'd spent it and forgotten. Maybe I'd miscounted. But then it became impossible to ignore. Last month, I had withdrawn $300 from the bank to pay my house cleaner. I put the envelope in my bedroom dresser drawer, planning to give it to Maria the next morning. When I went to get it, only $200 remained. I searched everywhere, convinced I'd misplaced it somehow. But deep down, I knew someone had taken it. The pattern became clearer over the following weeks. Money would disappear whenever Tyler visited alone. Never large amounts, usually $20 or $40, but enough that I started keeping track. I felt sick to my stomach, not because of the money itself, but because of what it meant. My sweet grandson, the boy I'd helped raise, was stealing from me. I agonized over what to do. Should I confront him directly? Tell his parents? Install a security camera? Every option felt like a betrayal of the trust we'd built over the years. But I couldn't let it continue. The breaking point came 3 weeks ago during our usual Sunday dinner. Tyler had been quiet all evening, picking at his food, avoiding eye contact. After dinner, he asked to use my bathroom upstairs. I thought nothing of it until I realized I'd left my purse on my bedroom dresser, the same bedroom where the upstairs bathroom was located. Something made me follow him. Call it grandmother's intuition or just paranoia, but I crept up the stairs and positioned myself where I could see into my bedroom through the partially open door. What I saw broke my heart and confirmed my worst fears. Tyler was standing at my dresser, my wallet open in his hands, carefully removing two $20 bills. His movements were practiced, methodical. This wasn't his first time. He folded the bills, slipped them into his pocket, and closed my wallet exactly as he'd found it. I stood there frozen, watching my grandson steal from me with the efficiency of someone who'd done it many times before. When he emerged from the bathroom, I was already back downstairs, my heart pounding and my mind racing. I waited until after they left to count my money. $40 missing, just as I'd suspected. That night I barely slept. I kept replaying the scene in my mind, trying to understand how we'd gotten to this point. What was Tyler doing with the money? Why didn't he just ask me if he needed something? I'd always been generous with him. Birthday money, Christmas gifts, little treats just because. The next morning I called David and asked him to come over alone. I needed to handle this delicately, to protect Tyler while still addressing the problem. When David arrived, I could see the stress lines around his eyes that seemed to have deepened over the past year. I made us coffee and sat him down at my kitchen table. the same table where I'd helped Tyler with countless homework assignments. "David, we need to talk about Tyler," I began carefully. "I think he's going through something and I'm worried about him." "What do you mean, Mom?" I took a deep breath. "Honey, I caught Tyler taking money from my wallet yesterday. This isn't the first time. I think he's been doing it for weeks." The change in David's expression was immediate and devastating. His face went from concern to disbelief to something that looked almost like anger. "Mom, that's a serious accusation. Are you absolutely sure?" "I saw him with my own eyes, David. He took $40 from my wallet while we were having dinner downstairs." David was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee cup. When he finally looked up, his expression had hardened. "I need to talk to Jessica about this. We'll handle it as a family." But when David returned the next day with Jessica and Tyler in tow, I knew immediately that the conversation hadn't gone the way I'd hoped. Jessica's smile was cold and calculating as she sat across from me at my kitchen table. Tyler looked pale and scared, avoiding my eyes entirely. David sat between them looking like a man caught in the middle of a war he didn't understand. "Margaret," Jessica began, her voice dripping with false concern. "David told me about your concerns regarding Tyler. I think we need to have an honest conversation." "Of course," I replied, confused by her tone. "I just want to help Tyler through whatever he's going through." Jessica leaned forward, her eyes never leaving mine. "The thing is, Margaret, Tyler was with me all day yesterday. We went shopping for school clothes, then had lunch, then went to his orthodontist appointment. He was never alone with your wallet." My blood ran cold. "That's not possible. I saw him." "Margaret," Jessica interrupted, her voice taking on that patronizing tone I'd grown to hate. "I think you're getting confused. It happens to people your age. Maybe you saw him using the bathroom and your mind filled in the blanks." Tyler finally looked up at me and I saw something in his eyes that made my heart sink. Not guilt, but fear. He was terrified, but not of being caught stealing. He was terrified of his mother. "Tyler," I said gently, "you can tell the truth. Whatever's going on, we can work through it together." But before Tyler could speak, Jessica's hand shot out and gripped his arm. "Tyler already told us the truth, didn't you, honey?" Tyler nodded miserably. I didn't take anything, Grandma Maggie. I wouldn't do that." David cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Mom, I think Jessica might be right. Maybe you misremembered what you saw." The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. My own son was choosing to believe his wife over his mother. But worse than that, I could see that Tyler was being coached, manipulated into lying to protect someone. But who? Jessica stood up, smoothing her skirt with satisfaction. "Margaret, I think it might be time to consider that your memory isn't what it used to be. Maybe we should look into some support options for you." The threat was clear. Agree that I was confused, or face the possibility of being declared incompetent. But I looked at Tyler one more time, saw the desperate plea in his eyes, and made my decision. "You're right," I said quietly. "I must have been confused." Jessica smiled triumphantly. "I'm so glad you understand. We just want what's best for everyone." As they left, Jessica turned back to me with that cold smile. "Oh, and Margaret, I think it's best if Tyler doesn't spend so much time here alone anymore. Just until you're feeling more stable." The door closed behind them and I sat in my empty kitchen, surrounded by the silence I'd thought I'd escaped 8 years ago. But this time, I wasn't going to accept defeat. That night I did something I never thought I'd do. I ordered a hidden camera online. If they wanted to play games with my sanity, I'd give them proof they couldn't deny. But while I waited for the camera to arrive, I started paying attention to things I'd previously overlooked. I began to piece together a puzzle that was far more disturbing than simple teenage theft. I remembered Tyler's weight loss, his anxiety, the way he flinched when Jessica touched him. I thought about the expensive clothes Jessica always wore, the new car she'd bought last month, the lavish birthday party that seemed designed more for show than for Tyler's happiness. Most importantly, I remembered something Tyler had said months ago, something I'd dismissed at the time. He'd been helping me weed my garden when he suddenly asked, "Grandma Maggie, what would you do if someone you loved was doing something really bad, but you couldn't tell anyone because it would hurt other people you love?" At the time, I'd assumed he was talking about a friend or a situation at school. Now, I wondered if he'd been trying to tell me something much more serious. The camera arrived on a Wednesday. I installed it in my bedroom, hidden behind a picture frame with a clear view of my dresser. Then I did something that felt like setting a trap for my own grandson. I left my purse on the dresser with $100 in cash, clearly visible. I didn't have to wait long. Friday afternoon, Tyler showed up at my door, looking more anxious than I'd ever seen him. His hands were shaking, and he kept glancing over his shoulder as if he expected someone to follow him. "Grandma Maggie, can I come in? I need to talk to you." "Of course, sweetheart. You're always welcome here." But instead of sitting down, Tyler paced my living room like a caged animal. "I can't stay long. Mom thinks I'm at the library." "Tyler, what's wrong? You look scared." He stopped pacing and looked at me with tears in his eyes. "Grandma, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything." "Sorry for what, honey?" "For lying to you. For taking your money. For letting Mom make you think you were crazy." The words tumbled out of him in a rush. But I didn't have a choice. "You don't understand what she's like when she's angry." My heart broke for him, but I also felt a surge of vindication. "Tyler, why don't you sit down and tell me everything?" What he told me over the next hour shattered my understanding of my family completely. Jessica had been stealing money from David's business accounts for over a year, funding a gambling addiction that had spiraled completely out of control. She owed money to dangerous people who had started making threats. When David's business partner began asking questions about missing funds, Jessica panicked. She'd been using Tyler as her unwitting accomplice, sending him to steal small amounts from me to help cover her debts, while she figured out how to replace the money she'd stolen from David's business. She'd convinced Tyler that if anyone found out, David would go to prison for embezzlement and their family would be destroyed. She said if I didn't help her, Dad would lose everything and it would be my fault. Tyler sobbed. She said you had so much money you'd never miss it, and it was just temporary until she could fix things. But Jessica had gotten greedy. The small amounts Tyler stole weren't enough anymore. She'd started pressuring him to take larger sums, and when I caught him, she'd seen an opportunity to discredit me entirely. "She's been planning to have you declared incompetent," Tyler whispered. "She wants Dad to get power of attorney over your finances. She thinks you have way more money than you actually do." The pieces fell into place with horrifying clarity. Jessica wasn't just stealing from me. She was planning to steal everything I had, using my own son as her weapon. "Tyler," I said gently, "I need you to know that none of this is your fault. You are trying to protect your father, and that shows how much you love him. But we need to stop this before it goes any further." Tyler nodded, wiping his eyes. "What do we do?" I smiled at my brave, scared grandson. "We tell the truth. All of it." The confrontation happened the following Sunday, during what Jessica thought would be another routine family dinner. But this time I had invited some additional guests, David's business partner Michael and my lawyer Patricia. Jessica's face went white when she saw them sitting at my dining room table, but she recovered quickly, putting on her brightest smile. "Margaret, what a surprise! You didn't mention we'd have company." "Sit down, Jessica," I said calmly. "We need to have a conversation." I started by playing the video from my hidden camera. Clear footage of Tyler taking money from my wallet, his face clearly showing distress rather than greed. Then I handed Michael a detailed accounting of all the money that had gone missing from my house over the past 3 months. "Tyler has something he wants to tell his father," I said gently. With my encouragement and support, Tyler told David everything about Jessica's gambling, the threats, the stolen money from the business, and how she'd manipulated him into stealing from me. David's face went through a range of emotions: shock, disbelief, anger, and finally a deep sadness that broke my heart. Jessica tried to deny everything at first, then shifted to blaming Tyler, then finally broke down and admitted the truth when Michael presented evidence of the missing business funds. "I was going to pay it all back," she sobbed. "I just needed more time. I never meant for it to go this far." But the damage was done. Michael had already contacted the authorities. Jessica was arrested that evening for embezzlement and fraud. The gambling debts were real and substantial, far more than our family could ever cover. David filed for divorce within the week. He's working with Michael and the authorities to try to save his business, though it will take years to recover financially. Tyler is in therapy, dealing with the trauma of being manipulated by his mother and the guilt he carried for so long. As for me, I'm no longer the confused old woman Jessica tried to paint me as. I'm the grandmother who fought back, who refused to let my family be destroyed by lies and manipulation. Tyler lives with David now, and they both come for Sunday dinner every week. We're rebuilding our relationships, learning to trust again. Tyler still calls me Grandma Maggie, and I still call him my little professor, though he's not so little anymore. The most important thing I learned from this experience is that age doesn't make you weak or confused. It makes you wise. I knew something was wrong, and I trusted my instincts even when everyone else doubted me. I refused to be gaslit into questioning my own reality. To anyone reading this who has ever been made to feel like they're too old to know what they're seeing, or who has watched a family member struggle with manipulation and abuse, trust your gut. Don't let anyone convince you that your age makes your observations less valid. Sometimes the wisdom that comes with years of living is exactly what a family needs to survive. And to the grandparents out there who love their grandchildren fiercely, never stop fighting for them, even when it's hard, even when it's complicated, even when it means standing up to your own children. Sometimes being the adult in the room means making the hard choices that no one else is willing to make. Tyler is going to be okay. David is going to be okay. And I'm going to be okay too. Have you ever had to choose between keeping peace in your family and standing up for what's right? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below.